And good morning.
Good
This is
morning.
what Portland is.
At the
Good
morning
morning
bell.
and good afternoon, Kiara.
Good afternoon. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Bam.
Good morning.
Exactly. Usually people are used to us going live at 6 o'clock in the evening on our time, but we are going live at, is it 6 o'clock there?
It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock in South Africa. So we are going live here, and we're so excited that we have Kiara Scott Farmer with us to chat about her wines. But then we had no idea that this was going to happen. But then over the weekend, she won Winemaker of the Year in South Africa. So we are like super excited. Woo! To chat with you. I have two of the wines here. I have the
Fantastic.
Chenin Blanc and the 16. So I'm really
Yes.
curious about the 16, what
Yes.
expired the 16. But let me stop chatting for a second and please introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, hello everyone in the show, and thank you so much, Leslie and Christina, for having me. It's fantastic. Thank you. So my name is Kiara. I'm the winemaker for Brookdale Estate in Paul, and yeah, I've been with Brookdale Estate now for 5 years officially, unofficially 7 years, and been making the wines there. And it's been really such a beautiful journey for me. And yeah, my the journey in wine has been absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. Um, yeah, and how it all started for me. So I well, firstly, I'm sitting in a car. Maybe you should know that. But
We've all been
it's
there.
always
Yeah.
it's always interesting. Um, in South Africa, yeah, always keeping it interesting. But so my journey in wine, I grew up in Mitchell's Plain. Mitchell's Plain is in the southern suburbs of the Cape Flats. And the Cape Flats is an area that's generally, um, it's like, I won't say it's a problematic area per se, but because of the socioeconomic issues in our area, we see a lot of gangsterism, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. And that's very normal things to see in the Cape Flats. Um, gender-based violence, all of those, well, unfortunately, that's things that can happen there just because of poverty and things like that. And I grew up in the Cape Flats, and I saw a lot of things, and regularly, saw people drinking. And I was quite curious about it, in the sense that, my family was quite conservative, and they always encouraged me to stay away from alcohol. And I was like, you know what, why? I was very curious, and always wondered why. What is it about this drink? What is it about it that makes people drink it and then they enjoy it? And then there's sometimes a personality change that happens. Someone that was quiet is now outspoken. Some people that's outspoken, they become withdrawn and introverted, you know. And I was you could say I was probably curious about the chemistry of wine. Um, and fast forward, I decided, this would be an interesting thing to study. I didn't know that, well, at the time, before I thought, let me study this, I didn't even know, that there was vineyards that grew grapes and that you made wine from grapes. I just thought it came from the store, like a Costco. We don't have Costco. We've got Macro or ShopRite equivalent. Um, but that's what I thought it came from. And I was like, you know what? I dug a little bit deeper, and found out, oh no, there's actually vineyards. And I was quite interested in these vineyards because the area that I grew up in, there wasn't a lot of trees and things like that. It was quite, it's like a concrete jungle, you can say. And I was like, okay, this looks interesting, and I decided, this is what I want to do. And my parents were like, no, you shouldn't do it. Because can you see what's happening out there? Look at the people, look at how they're struggling because they're drinking. And thankfully, I was at the age where, whatever they say don't do, I did. Whatever they say I did not do. Um, and I decided to embark on this journey of winemaking.
That
Wow.
is very interesting.
It is.
It's funny. Now that you've been doing it for about 5 years and obviously successful, what does your family say now about you being in the wine industry?
They it's been a long journey. I've actually been in the wine industry now officially for 10 years. Um,
Okay.
and but been involved with Brookdale for half of that, so 5 years with Brookdale. And now now they're open to learning. Now they are even open to sharing my wines. My mom doesn't drink a lot of she doesn't really drink wine, but she'll taste it. But what's so cute is she'll be like, oh, Kiara, don't forget to bring me a case of wine, I want to give it to so and so. So
They're very supportive then,
they
even
are
though
very
they
they're
are on
so
the conservative side. That's
Yes, they
wonderful.
are. They are so supportive, and they are so proud. Now it's been so touching. Even my grandmother, because I was raised by strong women. My grandmother raised me. My mom went to work. And just to be able to share this with them, it just means so much. It really means so much. I can't even put it into words right now.
That's wonderful. That's that if it makes you feel any better, I don't know if you've heard of a wine called Morgan David.
Hmm.
It's like it's rock gut basically,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's super sweet. It's super sweet.
Mhm.
And my mother grew up drinking it, and so she really does not like traditional wine. She calls it sour. Um, And so we always go through this whole education of no, it's not sour.
Yes.
The long story short is she's very supportive of my career, but is not a wine drinker at all. So I completely understand
Yes.
where
Yeah.
you're coming from. Hmm. Completely
Very much so.
understand.
How did
So have
you
you? Oh, go ahead, Christina.
That's okay. There's a little delay. There's a lag, so I apologize. I was curious, when you were saying that you kind of just went for it, don't do this, and you just did. What was your first step in that industry? Like, what was your first introduction? Did you find it really hard, um, breaking into the industry? And what was that biggest challenge, kind of getting into actually being a winemaker?
So, when once I decided this is what I want to do, I enrolled at Elsenburg with the University Stellenbosch, and I studied winemaking there. And I think, for the at that time, I stayed in the southern suburbs, which is not winelands at all. We're very far from the winelands. Um, so I think what was challenging was access, you know,
Hmm.
just having general access to resources such as transport, um, accommodation, all of the, I'll put I just say resources. But then, you work around all of those things with the help of my family, and then later on bursaries, um, which I'll speak about now. The amazing Cape Winemakers Guild, and So once we worked around all of that, yeah, I think that initially was the biggest hurdle. But once we got over that, it wasn't smooth sailing, but it was better. It was definitely better. And so I enrolled at Elsenburg Agricultural College, and I studied there, and I became completely enamored by winemaking, being in the vineyards, working and learning there. Because the university has got a working winery that you go do your final year of studies in at the working winery. And then it was there where I was introduced to the Cape Winemakers Guild. And the Cape Winemakers Guild is a fraternity in South Africa of the best winemakers in the country, or some of the best winemakers in the country. And they've got a program called the Protege Program. And the Protege Program is a program where they take newly graduated winemakers, three winemakers, um, graduated winemakers from out of South Africa, and you get to work with the best winemakers in the country, one winemaker a year for 3 years. And they give you the opportunity with the Protege Program to work with these winemakers, do a harvest overseas, and then also before joining the Cape Winemakers Guild, they also afforded me with a bursary in my final year of studies. Um,
Excellent.
so, so yeah,
That helps.
yeah.
How many women were in that program?
The Protege program, they were so they you could choose, or they chose three winemakers every year, and in my year it was we were actually two women,
Excellent.
and
Excellent.
yeah, and a man. Yeah.
Excellent. That's it's showing progress.
So
Oh yes. Oh yes.
how did it connect with Brookdale?
So once I finished studying, I worked at Savage Wines. I worked with Duncan Savage in his winery,
Duncan
and
said.
Duncan was consulting to Timrad and to Brookdale at the time, and so I joined Duncan at the end of 2017, by 2018, end of 2017, and he made the first Brookdale wine, the 2017 vintage, and I became acquainted with the owner of Brookdale, became acquainted with some of the staff that was there at the time, and I mean Brookdale was so small. If I think about it, there were like a handful of people on the property, and the business was growing. Brookdale was busy planting new vineyards at the time, who had started planting new vineyards, had just finished in 2018, refurbishing or establishing the manor house that's on the property. And we were becoming a growing brand. And Brookdale needed its own winemaker. In 2018, I made the wine with Duncan Savage, the Brookdale wines. And then in 2019, I moved over officially to become the winemaker of Brookdale. So it was just like this organic transition from assistant winemaker to winemaker. But I mean, at that time, we were so small. We were making, a couple of thousand bottles, which is not much at all. But I think I
Yeah,
really
that
grew
is.
into the position. Yeah. Yeah. So it was so amazing. At the time when I'd moved over to Brookdale, unbeknownst to me, I had then become the youngest head female winemaker in South Africa.
Wow. That's awesome.
And how, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you?
I was 20. Gosh, was I 25? 26. 26. I'll say 26.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
So
just like
yeah.
yesterday to you, Christina.
Oh yeah, right. Something like that.
So how did you start to make your mark there and establish your own signature style?
So I think, it was Paul, moving to Paul as a wine region, back then, had really taken the back seat. I think when a lot of people think of South African wine and regions, they think, Stellenbosch, the
Yes.
Swartland now, Franschhoek. They think Hemel and Aarde, Algen, all of these appellations. And then Paul kind of went to the back seat. So when we start, or when I moved to Brookdale and Duncan was there, people were like, you're gonna go where? You're gonna make wines from in Paul. And I think Brookdale is it's a beautiful site, and it's so interesting. The terroir there is so interesting. So the approach that we took was just, to work as naturally with as minimal intervention as possible to allow this terroir to shine through. Because I thought it's quite a beautiful property. The vineyards, on the estate, there's no place on the property where you can see the whole property, unless you were a bird. So there's
Wow.
hills and there's valleys. Um, you basically, when you drive into the state, you've got this beautiful panoramic views of mountains. It's absolutely stunning. Um, so I think we just allowed the terroir to shine. Yes, we are creative. I heard this weekend that there's three things to making really good wine. You need to have, sound knowledge, right, about wine, so the chemistry. Then there's creativity, and then there's passion. Um, and with all these three things, you can make beautiful wine. So we sort of understood our area and then make wines that would better suit the area, not necessarily what we wanted to imprint on that or on the vineyards, if you understand what I'm.
Absolutely. That's excellent. I've noticed so with the wines, with in particular with the two that we have, you have the 16 grapes and then you
Yes,
have the Chenin. Now,
yes.
the Chenin, is that a kind of a feature grape? Is that a primary grape that you use for both the single varietal and in a lot of your blends? And how many different grapes are you guys growing on the property? If
So I'll start with the last question. So we have got about over 38 different grape varietals on our property in
okay,
Brookdale.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, but
a
but but
long walk.
to, it is yes, to be fair, um, most of them are planted into single vineyard blocks. So it's the 16 where there's 16 different grape varietals, and then we've got a 20 field blend where it's 20 different red grape varietals. Um, and that's, and then we've got a little bit of other things. We've got Chenin planted, well, quite a bit of Chenin. We've got Syrah or Shiraz planted on the property as well. And then a little bit of Rhone varietals as well, yes, on the property. And then Chenin, Chenin, I think now belongs to South Africa, not the Loire anymore, although they're fantastic examples in the Loire. It's
Mhm.
really become our national, it's our grape. Like Pinotage is ours, Chenin is also ours,
Yes,
We're
I
making
agree.
some
I agree.
exceptional examples of Chenin in South Africa.
Yes.
Chenin was traditionally the workhorse. It was actually planted abundantly because it had great yields, right? And they use it for brandy production and all of these things. And so when you look at the amount of Chenin and old vine Chenin, and this is important because Brookdale is made from old vine grapes. There's over 51% of the old vine vineyards is Chenin Blanc.
Okay.
And they planted this variety, yeah, like I said, for its yields. That's why it was so massively planted around the Cape. But now we're seeing that Chenin is really, it's a chameleon. You know, it displays very well its terroir. So when it's in Paul, and
Mhm.
dependent in Paul where it's planted, um, you know it gives beautiful yellow fruit flavors. If you plant it in the Himalayan outer where it's slightly cooler, or certain areas in Stellenbosch, it will have maybe some greener aromatics, or display flint or wet stone. Really great at just displaying its terroir. um yeah, and then also, do you know about the Old Vine project?
No.
Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Old Vine Project. In South Africa, we have a phenomenal viticulturist named Rosa Creer, and she
Mm.
started the Old Vine Project. And this was because she was seeing all of these beautiful old vineyards that were being ripped out just because they were not yielding a lot of grapes, as they get older. Um, and she started this project called the Old Vine Project, where you can register your vineyards if they're over the age of 35. It's just been accepted by the OIV that internationally, all vineyards over the age of 35 will now be recognized as Old Vine, which is
Oh,
That's so
fantastic.
cool.
yeah.
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I have to look up that. That's
So, I mean, Old Vine Chenin, forgive, you must rein me in if I'm going off on a tangent.
very
No,
interesting. Love it. Keep
it
going.
is really
I digress
interesting. Yeah.
talking. But yeah, so in South Africa, we've got a lot of old vine Chenin Blanc planted. At Brookdale, we've got about 1.8 hectares now of old vine Chenin that's planted, and with that, we've made the Brookdale Chenin that you've got with you over there. And it's been quite a journey with this vineyard because when the property was purchased at Brookdale in 2015, we uprooted all of the vineyards except for 2 hectares of Chenin. The 1.8 hectares was planted in 1985, and the rest of it was planted in 1993. And we decided we were going to keep this vineyards because we wanted to keep a bit the heritage of the estate,
Okay.
um, and not just have completely new vineyards. We had to uproot the other ones because they had disease. They were affected with disease, and so we
Hmm.
had to remove them. But the Chenin was fine, and we made our first wine in 2017 from these vineyards, 1,000 bottles. And the vintage that I think you've got the 2022 vintage was a whopping 4,000 bottles. 7 years later. So it's not that much if you think about it. For there is, I mean, 4,000 bottles to go to the world. It's not that much, but it has increased substantially, and it speaks about the resilience of these vineyards, right? Um, and just what care and patience can do over time. So the idea is to try to get these vineyards back to their glory days, so to speak. Um, which is just taking a lot of care and consideration, and we've got a fantastic team in our vineyard that makes this all happen.
You're really planting a lot of your own roots there, aren't you? It sounds like you plan to be there for a while and really see things grow.
So, well, fortunately, I'm actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this now. Yeah. Um, okay, well, I'm not going to comment yet. It's fine.
So, in other words, you're growing as well into your
I'm
own
growing.
avenues, which
I'm
is
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is absolutely wonderful. I'm curious about the 16 grapes. Are they
Yes.
all white grapes in that blend?
So there are all white grapes, yes,
Hmm.
Okay.
in the blend, but in the vineyard, life is always so interesting and amazing. There's some red grapes in there, but they don't make it into the blend in the vineyard. Um, so it's 16 different grape varieties, all interplanted. So it's a traditional field blend that was intentionally planted that way. And the how this came about is that the owner, Tim Rad, a fantastic man, he frequents Portugal and fell in love with some of the wines that they produce there. And field blends is what, I mean, they've got so many field blends in Portugal,
Hmm.
and he came to South Africa and wanted to also do something similar here. But also, I think Paul is the perfect place to have a blend. Our climate here is it's warm. We've got very hot summers. We can go up to when it's really hot, it can go up to like 46 degrees. Oh, how much? I think that's like 90 plus Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
I think that's quite hot. Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's hot.
Very.
Or
Yes.
100, like
Hmm.
100, somewhere like 90 to 100.
Yes.
So it gets very, very hot. And then we've got really cold winters. Um, and when you're in a place this warm and you're growing grapes in a place that can get this warm, we wanted to plant varieties that had ageability, the good pHs and assisted in ageability, varieties that had good acidity,
Hmm.
had texture, great aromatics both on the palate and on the nose. So tongue in cheek, we were thinking, if you could have the perfect wine, what would be in there? And we decided, this is the varieties that we wanted to have planted in the field blend. And in South Africa, I'll tell you a very funny story. This is only going to stay in America, right? So I don't have to worry about the story coming out at home. But
Leslie?
no, no, it's fine. But so we were supposed to, in South Africa, we've got a wine certification board. And when you have to plant vineyards, like one row of Chenin Blanc, one row of Roussan, one row of Marsanne, one row of Pigpool, But we decided no, we wanted to be authentic. The viticulturist, the consulting viticulturist, yeah, said, no, we have to do it in rows because he wants to be able to track and map and see how everything behaves and uh, yeah, just be able to watch it really well. And the owner goes, and he's like, no, we want it to be an authentic field blend. So the night before we all plant this vineyard,
And
the
it's
owner goes
all
into the
over.
shed, he cuts all the tags off and mixes the whole
Yeah.
field, mixes all these vineyards and yeah, these young vines, at least these young vines around in their water baths. And the next morning, everybody just heads in and plants. So we have, well, we have some idea, but for the most part, we don't really know
Rebel
what's
wine.
planted where. It's yes, and it's such an amazing sight because
That's
when
great.
you go to the vineyards and this when the leaves are there, um, not in winter but now, like if you were to go into the vineyard now and it's looking so beautiful, you see this kaleidoscope of green, these different shades, and you
Oh.
can just tell everything is mixed up. When you're looking at the fruit, you've got some bunches. We've got macadamia planted in the field blend, and there's some bunches that are as big as my head. Then you get other bunches that are so tiny and small. Um, and the idea with the field blend as well is that, you know,
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we lost her.
Oh no, it's gonna come back.
I know. It was
Or is it-
getting so good. I can't
I
believe it.
know. That's great though. I have to say, I can only imagine what the viticulturist said when they came back and everything
Oh,
was
they were losing their stuff. They were.
that's that's I'm
They,
yeah, oh she says she's here. Um
and she's coming. I think I just saw something. But yeah, I mean, they were losing their stuff, especially if they were really meticulous about labeling each row or what have you. And then to come back and be like, oh, well,
what are you gonna do? That's
you
great though.
can't.
That's a great way to I know there's a few places around in the US that do that with the classic field buns, but it's not common. Although I've seen it in some wines in like southern France in the Rhone in particular.
Uh huh.
She says she's here, but I don't. Oh, she popped off. She'll probably come back on again.
Yeah.
But I have seen that. So that's really awesome that they did it. But I'm like anxious to hear what happened after the
I
fact
know.
because there we go.
oh, yeah.
It was like this was a perfect cliffhanger because we're
Mhm.
just like speculating what happened.
What happened? Like, did they completely freak out and say, "Oh my god"? I'm just really curious.
Um, so where did I stop now? um, So yeah, so there's just like all these different grape varietals, and everything looks different. And so when we're in the vineyard and we're harvesting, I always have to go back and say, guys, let's go back, let's pick again, because the team is used to picking grapes that look a particular way, but in the field blend, everything looks a little bit different. So like 9 out of 10 times I have to say, guys, we have to go back. Let's pick this row again. Don't leave anything behind. This is all part of the plan. Don't worry. I know it doesn't look perfect. And the idea is that, after time, these vineyards will start to ripen at the same time. At the moment, it's not happening. So you've got some varieties that are ripening like a week like a week ago. It looked like I was supposed to pick it then, like a week ago, and others that hasn't even gone through variation. It's still hard and green. Um, so it's really an interesting vineyard and block, but I do think that the wines are that it's producing the grapes that it's producing is exceptional. Um,
Do you find they're competing with each other? Do the grapes because they're growing, alongside each other like that, it kind of together. I've never actually heard a lot about how field blends do. There's a few wines that I know do the field blends, but they're a lot older, and I remember some conversations about the grapes, like they kind of almost start to compete with one another, and then eventually everything kind of evens out.
so at the moment, I won't say it's competition. I just think they're all growing at different paces right now.
What
Yes,
did the
Yeah.
and
So
viticulturist say?
no, he's a funny story, but so he actually got some doctors, people with PhDs in viticulture and in paleography, which is the study of the leaf.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, study of vineyard leaves, and he got some doctors in and asked them to identify all of these 16 grapes, right? And so they couldn't even identify everything, all of the grapes. I mean, they picked up probably one or two. They were like, oh yes, I can tell what that one is, and that one is, and that one is, but they couldn't tell what all of those vineyards were. So I think I'm in good company there with them.
I think so
Right.
too. I think it's interesting too because it probably is an interesting study on like um, disease control and when you have the mixing of different varietals there that they may help ward off some diseases compared to like if you just had
Mm.
Chardonnay there, then it's going to attract that fungus. It's like kind of like gardening when you plant garlic in between to ward off
Yes.
certain animals from. Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
No,
Right. Yeah.
it's a fantastic vineyard. I'm really pleased to be able to make wine from such a beautiful site and from such beautiful vineyards. It's a great learning curve, but working with wine is like that. It keeps you very humble. Whenever you think you really know something, nature goes, guess again. Uh,
Must send us some pictures of that. We would love to
I
see
will.
some pictures of that.
I
And
will.
Yes.
what's anything particular coming up that you're really looking forward to making or
So
showcasing?
definitely, definitely. We have planted Petit Manseng on the property, which we'll
Oh,
be making, or we've made a sweet wine of Petit Manseng. But at the moment, it's very,
Ooh,
very limited quantities. It's only 34 liters, so not
okay.
much
No, that
to go
isn't.
around. And then we've actually we bottled out 20 field blend. This year was the first year that we made it. And I think, yeah, I think for first time, I'm so proud of that wine. It's looking, I'm very happy with it. I'm
I would
really
be looking
so
forward.
happy with it.
I'll be looking forward to trying that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I For anybody that's now we have the Mason Road Syrah. Is that right?
Yes.
Am I thinking that?
We have
Yes.
the we
Yes.
have the Syrah.
The Syrah, the
We
Mason
also
Road
have the
Syrah,
Syrah.
the Chenin and the
And the
Brookdale. And those came, for anybody who's wondering, they came right from Brookdale to the importer direct to us. So they're very limited quantities, and as Kiara had mentioned, it's um, they don't produce a whole lot, but we got enough, and there's a little bit left, and they're great holiday wines too. These wines are fantastic for sipping and just beautiful for food.
Yeah, I would definitely
Yes.
say the Chenin is great.
Yes.
Our Thanksgiving is this Thursday, and so this is great at the Thanksgiving table because um, it's a kaleidoscope of different foods on the table, and this just pairs with the majority of the food that's
Yes.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah, the Brookdale wines, they're really gastronomic. We make them, and they're made in a style to pair really well with food.
Hmm.
So in South Africa, in Cape Town particularly, you'll find the Mason Road in a lot of restaurants, um, and people absolutely just love this wine with food. Last year, I visited Germany, and I was so surprised to find the Mason Road Chenin Blanc in a Michelin star restaurant.
Really?
Incredible.
That
So
is surprising.
it's really it's it's really great food wines. I think good wine, good food, and great company. That's the trifecta.
Christina, is that your phone?
It is, and I can't get it to turn off. I apologize. It's technology. What am I going to say? I hoping it's going out soon.
So
it's the bell. It's the ringing bell.
before we started, and I don't want to hold you much longer, but you were sharing with us about the award that you won
Yes.
this past Saturday, and you shared with us a fun fact about the number of women who have won that award. Can you share it with
Hmm.
our followers?
Yes. So on Saturday, I was awarded with with this prestigious award of being the Diners Club International Winemaker of the Year, and it's a huge honor to even have been nominated as the top six, and even greater honor to be awarded with Winemaker of the Year. I'm the only the second woman to have won this prestigious title since the inception. I think in 1981, but there's only been two women, and I'm the first woman of color to have won since its inception as
Wow.
well.
Wonderful news.
Um, which is, I mean, it's absolutely thrilling, amazing. I'm actually still busy processing it because it's so fresh. So I'm so humbled and grateful. Yeah, for this award. Absolutely humbled and grateful.
We
And
are so excited for you
We're
yeah,
very excited
thank
for
you,
you. And thank
thank
you
you,
for
thank
sharing
you,
your wonderful wine with us.
and your
thank
stories.
you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Christina, do you have any other questions before we sign off?
I don't. I don't. Unless you have one to ask that favorite question you like to ask.
Yes. I thank you for I was thinking about that this morning. I didn't ask it the last time. So we always like to ask our guests if you only had one wine to drink for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my word. It's such a tough one. For the rest of my life, only one.
Mm-hmm.
Can
We've
I
actually had people not drink wine, say things other than wine. So
only one drink? Okay, I'll go with one. If I had only one wine to drink, yeah, I would probably say, can I be very broad and say probably white blends? I would drink
Okay.
white blends. I can't narrow it down any further. I feel like that's so unfair. There's so many beautiful wines out there. I'd probably, if I were to narrow it down even to a variety, I'd drink Chenin Blanc.
you
I
really
think
have an
that would be,
affinity for that wine. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
Like great.
yeah.
Excellent.
So many different styles. It's
This is
incredibly
true.
versatile. It can be sweet wine. You can make still, sweet, cap
Hmm.
classique. or we call it Cap Classique. It's the
Mhm.
French call it champagne. You can do literally anything except make red wine. That's the only thing.
Have you made an ice wine with Chenin Blanc?
No, no, not yet. I've made a Cap Classique or like a champagne style
Mhm.
from
Right.
Shin before. I have, um, but not a sweet one of Shannon yet.
Okay.
On the horizon.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you very much, Christina. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you to everybody that's watching.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kiara. Keep making wonderful wines, and we will keep drinking them for sure.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
promise.
Cheers.
Yes, bye bye.